Hello everybody, my name is Dragon. Welcome back my channel Health Fitness 1047. Here is the episode new. Follow me.
Edward Berger's Conclave is now available on the Peacock streaming platform, and is also available to rent buy on Prime Video, Apple TV+, Google Play, and Fandango at home. Premiering on October 25, 2024, Conclave has been nominated for 8 Oscars, including Best Picture, Best Actor, Ralph Fiennes, Best Supporting Actress, Isabella Rossellini, Costume Design, Film Editing, Production Design, Original Score, and Adapted Screenplay. Based on the best-selling novel by Robert Harris. The film revolves around 72 tense hours at the Vatican as the cardinals meet in secret to elect a new pope after the death of the previous pope. The main character is Cardinal Lawrence, Ralph Fiennes, with an impressive supporting cast including Stanley Tucci, Sergio Castellitto, and John Lithgow. The film is a deep and multi-layered reflection on the conflict between faith, tradition, and politics. Coincidentally, the film's release coincides with a real-life event. Pope Francis passed away on April 21, 2025, just a few months after the film's release. 1. The central theme, faith amid the storm of politics and tradition. The film Conclave is not simply a religious political work, but an introspective symphony about the question: who is worthy to lead the human faith? Ralph Fiennes plays a cardinal who faces divisions within the church, political pressure, and his own awakening. This is a battle not only between people, but between ideals and reality, between divinity and worldly weakness. 2. A cold approach to reality. The film depicts the papal election ceremony not as a glorious event, but as a silent, calculating battle. The characters, mostly men, carry the dignity of office, but also reveal ambitions, doubts, and worries. Sister Agnes, played by Isabella Rossellini, is a rare but influential female character, symbolizing the silent and resolute voice within the Church. 3. The rich cinematic setting. The setting is the Vatican. Specifically the Sistine Chapel, a place where art, religion, and power converge. Light, darkness, the echoing of church bells, all create a sacred but oppressive atmosphere. Pushing the audience into a spiral of moral questions: is faith still pure when weighed against the political scale? 1. Real-life connection, the death of Pope Francis. It is strange and thought-provoking that Conclave was released just a few months before Pope Francis passed away. Not only does this make the film prophetic, it also pushes the audience into a deeper contemplation. If a pope really did die, would the behind-the-scenes drama of choosing a successor be as dramatic as the movies? And could those struggles undermine the faith of millions? 2. The role of cinema in contemporary religion. Conclave raises an important question. When cinema, an art form inherently tied to fiction, intrudes on the realm of the sacred, is it an insult or an opportunity to illuminate the truth? Some believers may find the film's exposé of the behind-the-scenes of papal elections distasteful. But there's no denying that Conclave is helping the public understand the Church, not as an absolute symbol, but as a deeply human institution. 3. The final message: the chosen one is not perfect. Ralph Fiennes' quote in an interview: "I think the film asks the question, who is the best person to lead? And what do we expect from them?" is the key to the film. No one is perfect. But Conclave does not require an omnipotent saint, but a person who can bring faith into these turbulent times. Conclave is a difficult film to watch, thoughtful, political, and demanding that the audience confront the dark corners of faith. But that is also what makes it a masterpiece of contemporary religious cinema. It does not preach, it does not preach. It simply asks, as the world changes, can the Church, or any faith, retain its soul? Cardinal Lawrence and Sister Agnes, two central characters that help Conclave go beyond the framework of a conventional religious political film, to become a work of heavy psychological and philosophical weight. 1. Cardinal Lawrence, the ego between faith and truth, the face of ideals and skepticism. Cardinal Lawrence, played by Ralph Fiennes, is the central character of Conclave, a devout cardinal who was once a close friend and trusted advisor to the recently deceased Pope. On the surface, he represents integrity, humility, always puts the good of the Church first. However, behind the red robes and calm exterior is a man full of contradictions, between loyalty and doubt, between faith and the truth that gnaws at him. Personal crisis of faith. When the election began, Cardinal Lawrence did not want power. But the revelations that gradually emerged about the dark past of some cardinals, about secrets involving the former Pope himself, made it impossible for him to stay out. Lawrence was faced with a choice: to keep silent to protect the integrity of the Church, or to speak out and accept the consequences. It is here that the character comes alive. He is no longer a religious official, but a solitary man, grappling with the greatest moral question. If speaking the truth would hurt the Church, should one keep silent to protect the faith of millions? Journey to the Light, or the Abyss, Lawrence is not portrayed as a classic hero. Instead, he is built like a Dostoevsky character, soul-searching to the core, always standing between the two paths, faith and truth. And that is what makes him an inevitable candidate for the papacy, not because he wants it, but because he doesn't. Ralph Fiennes infuses the role with a quiet but burning inner strength. His face, with a heavy gaze, walking silently through the Vatican corridors, is the image of a religious generation struggling in the modern world, disoriented, but still clinging to what is right. 2. Sister Agnes, the silent observer and symbol of quiet strength, the only woman in a male-dominated world, in a film that is almost entirely male. The appearance of Isabella Rossellini as Sister Agnes is not just to balance the genders. She is the antithesis of all the cardinals: no power, no vote, no official seat in the meeting. But it is from this position on the sidelines that she becomes the moral center of the film. Agnes does not need to say much. Her eyes, her small gestures are enough to reflect sensitivity, compassion and feminine intuition in a system that is being eroded by political ambition. Keeper of secrets and safe stay of conscience. Sister Agnes is the logistical manager for the College of Cardinals during the election period. But at the same time, she witnesses everything: the arguments, the intrigues, the decay from within. While the cardinals argue about who is worthy, Agnes sees through each one of them. There is a valuable scene when Cardinal Lawrence asks Agnes about an important detail related to a secret of the past. She only replies with a meaningful sentence: "The truth does not need to be shouted. It just needs to be kept." That sentence, in the space filled with the hammer of power, resounds like a quiet slash, cold and precise. The image of the original faith. Sister Agnes does not belong to any side, does not compete for influence, does not have personal ambitions. But because of that, she becomes the only person who still retains the original soul of the Church. In a system full of calculations, her presence is a reminder that faith does not lie in high positions, but exists in behavior, compassion and understanding silence. Summary: the two opposite poles create the moral axis of the film. Cardinal Lawrence is someone who is falling into the gray area of morality, where there is no longer a clear right, wrong. Sister Agnes is a silent light, a voice from the sidelines but never absent. Between them is a nameless connection, not romantic, not powerful, but the harmony of souls of two people who carry within them the desire to preserve the most sacred thing of faith, honesty with themselves. Cinematic symbols in Conclave, elements of visual language that contribute to highlighting the theme of faith, power and skepticism in the modern Catholic world. Director Edward Berger used symbols in a subtle and meaningful way, turning each frame into a sacred painting, at the same time exposing the nakedness of power in the human soul. 1. Light, revelation or the shadow of truth in Conclave. Light is not only a visual tool but also a powerful symbol of revelation, the sacred light of God, and the nakedness when the secret is revealed. Christian light. In the scene set in the Sistine Chapel, the light is often placed from above, shining through narrow windows. This is a direct reference to the light from God, guiding those who are walking in faith. However, that light never shines completely, it is always broken, obscured by statues, columns or even human shadows. The implication is that faith in the modern world is no longer intact, and God's light is being obscured by those who wear the robes of monks. When the light becomes threatening, in some passages, the light is no longer warm but turns harsh white, almost stripping the faces of the characters, especially in the scenes where Cardinal Lawrence faces the truth. In these scenes, the light is like a knife, forcing the character to face his true nature. 2. The Sistine Chapel, a space of power and testing faith, a silent theater. The Sistine Chapel, where the cardinals gather to elect a pope, is a symbol of absolute holiness. But in the conclave, it becomes a stage where the most powerful people in the church wrestle with the darkness within themselves. There is no background music, no ostentatious dialogue, just quiet footsteps, the sound of chairs moving, and the oppressive pressure from four walls covered with holy paintings. Michelangelo's ceiling is like the eye of God watching. The camera often looks up at Michelangelo's Genesis on the ceiling, where God's hand almost touches the human hand. This is not only an artistic angle, but also a symbol of the confrontation between the divine and the human. Does God still intervene in the secular world? Or has he left humans to gnaw at each other in their broken faith? 3. The bell, the heartbeat of religion or the last knell. The bell rings many times in the film, not only in ritual scenes but also in moments of solitude and contemplation. The bell is a sacred heart. Church bells often signal the beginning or end of a ritual, a decision, a life. In the conclave, the bell marks the beginning of the election, but as the film progresses, the bell becomes lonely and melancholy. It no longer has a sacred meaning but becomes an echo from the past, like a warning. Something has died in us. The black bell, in the final scene, when black smoke rises, meaning that no pope has been elected, the bell rings like a bell of disappointment. No one speaks. Only that sound, heavy, broken, like the soul of the church is lost. 4. Color, the battle between red, black, white. Edward Berger does not use color randomly. Each color has a distinct symbolic layer, deeply supporting the film's theme. Red, cardinal's robe. Red is the color of blood, martyrdom, but also absolute power. When the cardinals sit next to each other, red creates a wall of power, cold and oppressive. Red in the film does not evoke warmth, but on the contrary, evokes a sense of danger and closure. Black, moral void. Sister Agnes's dress is black, in contrast to the splendor of the cardinals. But she is not small. In the frame, her black stands out in a sea of red, like a hole in the system, or the last moral anchor. This is a deliberate contrast to emphasize true faith does not come from the color of the robe, but from simplicity and silence. White, lost symbol, white, symbolizing the Pope, only appears in statues and holy pictures. That seems to imply that this pure model only exists in the past. And towards the end of the film, white gradually fades, to the point of almost disappearing, like a soul leaving the place that was once considered the heart of God. Summary. Symbolism, a wordless language. Conclave is a film where dialogue is not enough to convey everything. Light, space, color and sound all combine into a rich system of symbols. They not only beautify the frame, but also quietly tell another story. The story of the silent decay of faith, of the struggle between politics and spirituality, between man and God. Cinematic symbols in Conclave, we go deeper, the socio-political message hidden under the solemn religious cloak. Under the hands of director Edward Berger. The film is not only a story about the Catholic Church but also a mirror reflecting the crises of identity, faith and power that are taking place on a global scale. 1. Crisis of faith. Religion is no longer a lifebuoy. The Church, as an aging institution. The film is set in the Vatican, the center of Catholic religious power, a place that used to be able to tilt the balance of world politics. But in Conclave, the audience does not see the sacred or the radiant holiness. Instead, it is a collective full of arguments, suspicions, calculations and fears. It is a picture of a religious institution no longer sure of itself and struggling to shape its future. This reflects today's reality, the decline of trust in traditional religious institutions, not only in the West but all over the world. Faith or politicization of faith. The film clearly shows the interweaving of personal faith and power strategy. Cardinals no longer just pray for enlightenment, they probe, bargain, court votes. The election of the Pope, the representative of God, becomes a real election with campaigning and tactics. The film does not clearly affirm that this is good or bad, but only forces viewers to face the truth. Religion, when linked to secular power, is always deformed. 2. Global politics. When the Vatican is a microcosm of the world. Vatican, a state, not just a holy land. Through Berger's lens, the Vatican is not only a sacred symbol but also a political microstate. Cardinals come from many countries. They bring not only faith, but also political ambitions and ideas. Cardinal Benitez, Latin American, has a more open social perspective. Cardinal Tedesco, Italian, holds a conservative stance, while Cardinal Adeyemi, African, reflects the voice of a continent that was once forgotten. Equals greater than this reflects the fragmentation of global power. Each cultural region is demanding a place and a voice in the old order that is shaking. Institutional instability. When the old law is no longer suitable, the ancient laws of the Church are no longer enough to guide a modern world where individual values, gender equality, human rights are emerging strongly. The character Sister Agnes, a woman in a male-dominated space, has no official voice, but is the only one who retains moral intuition. This is a powerful metaphor for the inadequacy of the authoritarian regime in an age of multidimensional dialogue. 3. The leadership crisis. Who is worthy to lead? No one is truly holy enough. One of the central questions of the film, as Ralph Fiennes himself once stated, is, who is worthy to lead spiritually? None of the candidates is perfect. One is moral but weak, the other is strategic but insincere. And Lawrence, the main character, also has a conflicted past, a painful secret. The film puts the audience in a position of having to choose. Do we accept an imperfect leader, but one who repents and has genuine inner struggle, rather than a flawless one who is cold and calculating? Equals greater than this is not just a question for the Vatican, but for the entire world today, where political and social leadership is being questioned, discredited, and demanding a new standard of integrity and humanity. 4. The signal from the death of Pope Francis, in the film. The timing of the film's release almost coincides with the fictional death of Pope Francis in the film, and in real life. This death symbolizes the end of an era of the Church close to the people, open, but also raises the question, where will the next era go? The Pope's last words, "Light overcomes darkness, forgiveness overcomes hatred," are not just moral preaching. They are like a desperate last words when his successors may not even maintain that spirit. Summary. Conclave, not just the Vatican, but all of humanity under the cloak of the ancient Church. Conclave is a broad metaphor for the contemporary world, a world that has lost its moral direction. A society skeptical of all institutions, from religion to government, a generation that is hungry for new leadership, not just strong but truly human. The film does not provide an answer. But through the light, the color, the silent scenes and the bells ringing in the Sistine Chapel, Edward Berger seems to be sending a message. This is the time for humanity to choose its soul.